Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm back with the video on how I make my pizza crust. Now, basically this is just my basic yeast bread recipe with a few minor changes. So I want to show you what I do. And as with a lot of things, sometimes I mix things up and add some things that I don't add other times. So it can be different every single time. So I'm going to give you a few options on what you can do with yours. Oh, and if you missed my recipes on how I make the Italian sausage to put on top of the pizza, or the Italian sauce, the pizza sauce that I make, I'll go ahead and link to those videos back to back right up here in the corner so you can check them out. Okay, let's get busy and start this pizza crust. All right, so the first thing I need to do is get some water heated up, and I'm going to take a cup of water. I always use this crazy small little container because I prefer using this. And the reason this is in a jug, for those of you who are new, we collect and filter our own rainwater, so we're not getting the junk, the fluoride and the chlorine from the city tap water. And then these thermometers, I bought a pack of 2 of them. I love these things because I'm always breaking those old other glass ones. So I got these on Amazon. I'll link to them below. And I'll take a picture and show you. I'm going to heat this up on the wood stove, so I'll show you how I prop this up. Now, the nice thing about these thermometers is they do have a stand and a good heavy clip. Okay, unlike those glass ones. So these are just more sturdy. They're less likely to break because of the stainless steel around them. All right, so you don't want to let that water get over 120 degrees. So 115 to 120 degrees, that's why I use the thermometer. And so what I'm going to do while I'm waiting for that to heat up, which won't take long because my wood stove's pretty hot today, is I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of the dry yeast. And then I'm going to put in about 2 tablespoons of flaxseed. This is totally optional, but if you're going to use flaxseed, especially that's not ground, now is the time you want to put it in. And pretty much any seeds, that's a good idea. So about 2 tablespoons of chia seed. Other seeds I like to add are hemp seed and poppy seed. I'm not going to do those today. Let's put in about a pinch or 2 of rosemary. This is good organic rosemary. Some of it is it's a blend of my own homegrown and the store-bought. Or I get it on Amazon. I always buy things in bulk until my rosemary gets to a point that I can get enough for a whole year, which should be this year. I think I'll be able to do it this year. So I probably won't have to ever buy any more rosemary after this point. But anyway, so now's a good time to add that as well. Go ahead and put in your salt, which is going to be about a teaspoon. Okay. And I recommend, this is also totally optional, but I recommend it because I believe it really is helpful in getting the bread to rise, because the yeast loves sugar. And I put in about a teaspoon or so of sugar. I don't like to put it in my sauce, but I will put it in my breads because I just think it's really good for it. Another thing I think is really good to help with your bread and the whole rising process is to add some kind of fat. Typically I'll do butter, but for this I'm going to be putting some extra virgin olive oil. And as you can see, I get it at Costco. And you can order it online. If you don't have a Costco near you, look at the online accounts. You can order a lot of stuff online. I love Costco for that. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and whisk those ingredients together. And now I'm going to add 1 cup of my flour. Now this is a mix of spelt flour, hard white and soft white wheat, plus a little bit of buckwheat that I've mixed the whole grains together and then processed them in my Country Living grain mill, and you can find a link to that below. It is an expensive setup, but it's one of those things that for me, like a KitchenAid to me isn't, or a Vitamix isn't worth the cost for me personally, but the Country Living grain mill was. It's built like a tank. It's made where it can run off a motor, or it can be totally off-grid, and I do it both ways. So, okay, I'm just kind of mixing my ingredients here, and then I'm going to go check on my water and see if it's ready. All right, my water is right at 120 degrees, so I'm going to go ahead and mix it in with the rest of this. And what that's going to do is going to activate your yeast. So using my little bread whisk, or you can use a big fork or any other type of whisk. Really liking these bread whisks that Mary sent me. Just blend that in really good. And then you're going to let it sit for about 5 minutes to proof. And this is going to get bubbly and very active. So I'll be back when this is ready to move on. Okay, I'm back. I've let this sit. You want to let it sit for at least 5 minutes. And I don't know if you can tell in that view, but it should look very bubbly and kind of, you know, look bigger, like it's filled up some more of the dish. And so this is a good time to add in a little bit of either a fermentation starter, a couple tablespoons, or I recommend for your pizza crust putting in some of that raisin vinegar. And I have a video on how to make the raisin vinegar. I'm going to say one thing before you check that out. I recommend now, that was an old video, I recommend now you stir it daily for a couple of weeks and maybe even add a little bit of sugar about at the 1 or 2 week mark to make a stronger vinegar and to keep it from getting any mold on the top. So anyway, I don't typically have issues with my raisin vinegar growing mold, but some people have said that they have. So stirring it every day will really help with that. So the vinegar, the raisin vinegar just adds a super nice flavor that kind of gives it even more of that Italian flavor. So I'm going to mix a little bit of that in. And now another option you could consider is adding some garlic right into your dough. I do this from time to time, especially if, you know, we really want lots of garlic. So I'd say up to a tablespoon of your granulated garlic. And now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take some zucchini from my garden that I diced up and dehydrated. I'm going to turn it into a powder. So I'm going to use my coffee grinder that I bought specifically just for this, because I have another coffee grinder dedicated just for coffee. And I'm going to fill it up to about there. That's probably about a half cup of this, which once it's processed might equal about a 1/4 cup of the zucchini powder. Okay, very powdery. And now what this is going to do is it's going to add a little more softness to the bread and more nutrition. And then the other thing is it's just another way you can use up all that excess zucchini from your garden. Dehydrate it up and then powder it and add it to your breads and stuff. It'll also replace a little bit of the flour. So this is why you want to add it in here before you start adding in the rest of your flours. Now if you want, you can go half and half on your whole grain and then a good organic white flour, or even like 2/3 whole grain and 1/3 white. I think that's probably what I'm going to do today. I want to use mostly the whole grain flour. Every now and then I just like to mix it up, and thing I like about your good organic white flour is it does yield a lighter bread. Now it's not quite such a big deal with the pizza crust, but still I try to keep it from getting too heavy, especially since I add all these other great ingredients in there. Okay, so I'm going to take, I've got 2 cups right now of the whole grain flour. I'm going to go ahead and add a cup of the white flour. Now the white flour I'm using right now is King Arthur's. I get it on Amazon. I get a pack of 6 bags. But I also have a bag of Azure Standard. I'll link to both of them below. I haven't started using the Azure Standard, so I don't know if I like it yet. But both are organic, white, unbleached flour. That's what I try to look for. Definitely unbleached and organic. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that whole cup in there. Now you can add it in a little slower than this if you want. You just want to get it to where it starts to pull together pretty good so that you can then move on to the kneading process. So that's all the white flour I'm going to use on that. The rest of the flour I'm going to use will be the whole grain. Okay, now what I like to do with my bowl is I take it with the whisk and I let it soak while I'm kneading the bread, because I'm going to wash this up and I'm going to use it to let the bread rise in. Okay, so just start pushing those together, all those pieces, and start folding them in on itself. And it will start pulling together and making a nice ball here very quickly. Okay, you can see how I'm kneading it there. Everybody's going to have their own style of kneading. You've got to find what works best for you. I kind of do a little bit of everything. Okay, now it's getting to the point that I can really start kneading it, and I'll be adding more flour as it gets sticky. So I take a cup, sprinkle it on my counter, and spread it around, and then just start rolling. So you can see I do kind of this squish motion where I just grab it and squish it. I roll it and push it. I fold it. I do a little bit of everything. It kind of depends on how the dough feels at the moment, how sticky it is, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to just keep kneading the bread until it's nice and smooth and elastic, and then we're going to make a ball out of it, and then we're going to let it rise for an hour in our bowl. And I will be back with that step when this is ready. Okay, so now I'm ready to put the bread in the bowl, or the dough, and I'm going to pour a capful of my olive oil in there, and then I'm going to spread it all around evenly in the bowl, and then take the excess and make sure I top the top of the bread off really well. Now, kneading your bread is going to be about 5 to 10 minutes depending on how vigorously you knead. You'll know by the way it feels, especially the more you do it, you just kind of get experienced with it. It typically only takes me about 3 to 5 minutes to knead the bread, if that. Okay, and then I'm going to cover it up, and I'm going to set it next to my wood stove, not too close to it, but close enough where it can stay nice and warm. And in about an hour, it should be double in size and filling up the bowl. And then I'll be back when I'm ready to move on to the next step. Okay, my dough is ready for the next step, but before I do that, I want to show you a few things. So I'm going to be putting some shiitake mushrooms that I got off of Amazon. I love these. They're very good. I've been using now this jar, but I vacuum seal it again every time I open it. And I'm finding I like these for putting on top of the pizza. So this is another idea for using food storage for your pizza toppings. So I'm going to take some of these out, and you want to break them up, because shiitake mushrooms can be kind of big. And you don't want to get too many, because unlike, when you get fresh mushrooms and they seems like a lot, and then you cook them down and there's hardly anything there. Well, since these are dehydrated, they're going to swell up, and this will be plenty for putting on top of the pizza. So I'm putting that in here so I can soak them and let them turn in, and let them soak up the water, and then they'll be the right consistency for putting on top of the pizza. I'm also going to be putting in some more zucchini, some diced up zucchini on, so that'll go on top. So we'll put that in there so that they can rehydrate, and some dehydrated tomatoes from the garden. And I'll put some of those in there. And a couple of options you can do is you can put in a little bit of your homemade wine for flavor, just add a little more flavor to those. And then the rest, so maybe a tablespoon or two, and then top the rest off with some water and make sure they're well covered. And then check on them and see if you need to add more water as they start soaking that up. And so I'm doing this now so that they'll be all rehydrated by the time I'm ready to put them on top of my pizza for baking. So I'm going to set that aside. Oh yes, and you can also sprinkle a little bit of salt in there too, just to add a little more flavor to the vegetables. Whatever it is that you're going to use from your food storage, whatever freeze-dried, dehydrated foods that you want to add to that, that's just an option. Another thing we like to use is black olives. And then I also have some peppers, orange and green peppers. I got a good deal on them, and I cut them up and froze them. They freeze really well because we got a whole bunch. And so I'll be putting these on top of the pizza as well. Okay, so on to the crust. So now you can see it is doubled in size. Okay, so I'm just going to punch it down. And typically a lot of people will I like to mop up as much of that good oil as I can. Some people will like to let it rest for 10 minutes. I don't typically do that. I usually just go right to work, but it can be a little bit easier to deal with if you let it rest. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and roll it out. I've tried to practice being good at pizza dough tossing And I never got really good at it, especially whenever I use a lot of whole grains and seeds. It makes it more delicate and your hand is more likely to go through it. It's just as easy to go ahead and roll it out. Now, if you have a lot more dough than what you need for your pizza, you can take out some of it, set it aside, and make some breadsticks out of it simply by cutting it into small pieces and then rolling them. And I have a picture I'll insert right here that shows what I did last time when we had a family night. I made a pizza, I made extra bread dough so that I could have some for making the breadsticks. So that's also a good option that you can do. And so I'm gonna do that with some of this. Make us a couple of breadsticks. So what I do is I just start to press it out with my hands on a well-floured surface. You might want to turn it a couple of times. And then take your rolling pin and just start getting it close to that size that you want. So the next thing I need to do is I need to take my cast iron pan that I'm going to use, or if you're using a stoneware pan, it's also excellent. If you have a stoneware pizza pan, I had both. I really like the cast iron, but the stoneware is just a really great option as well. So here is my lodge. I've got this, I'm going to go set it on my wood stove. You can put it in your oven to let it start heating up. It's good to have it nice and warm. And what I recommend is putting some kind of oil on this to let it heat up with it, because it's going to not just help keep it stick free, but help give the bottom of the crust even more crispiness. So what I'm going to be using is my own homemade clarified butter. That can handle a lot higher heat than, of course, regular butter, which is on the lowest. Clarified butter actually raises it clear up to almost the top. Not as good as avocado oil. Avocado oil is the highest, and also refined coconut oil is pretty high at 450 degrees. Now I do have a video I did just on oils for cooking, what can handle what heats best, and I'll go ahead and link to that right up here if you're interested. So I'm going to put my clarified butter on there. I'm going to put about a teaspoon or so, maybe a tablespoon, and I'm going to put this on the wood stove and let it heat up. And so obviously if you're vegetarian or vegan, you can the coconut oil or avocado oil is a really good option to put on your pan. Even when I'm doing stoneware, typically you're not going to put any kind of fat on it, but there is another step that you can do that will help, that will be a good idea to put on either pan no matter what you're using, and I'll get to that in a minute. So I'm going to leave this, let that pan finish getting hot, and then I'm going to put it in the pan, and then I'm going to shape it some more, shape the edge once I get it in there. Okay, my pan is nice and hot, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up my crust and set it right in the pan here. And I do have a hot pad under it. It's actually one that I made out of old t-shirts. It's very thick. I crocheted out of some old t-shirts I cut into strips. And so then I just start pressing it in there. Now you can see I've got some overhang here. So what I'm going to do, because I know about how thick I like the pizza crust, I don't like it to be too thick. Then it's just kind of like eating a loaf of bread with stuff on top. And, which, that's not bad either, but that's not pizza. And then I'll just take this excess and cut it off. And that will just become another breadstick. And anyway, just kind of shape it, get your lip up there as high as you want it. That will help hold all your goodies in there. And then you're going to let this rise for about a half an hour, and you'll start to see it get bubbly on top and kind of thick. And then that's when you're going to put your toppings on. So I'll be back when that's ready. All right, I'm still waiting for the pizza to rise, but I just remembered something I had forgot to show you with the pizza as an option to put under that. And that is to get some organic cornmeal. So what I have here is some white cornmeal. We bought the whole corn it's organic, from Azure Standard, and then we ground it up in our Country Living grain mill. And then what you can do is take a handful of that and sprinkle it around in the bottom of your pan. And then I'm going to take the little breadsticks that I made. These will rise and get puffier. You can make them whatever size you want, and just put them down in the pan like that. I did the same thing with this. I put the clarified butter in there and then heated it up so it'd get nice and warm. And then, as you can see, put the cornmeal on there, and then we'll just let that rise as well. And then when these are ready, you're going to want to bake them for about 15 to 20 minutes at 400 degrees. And that's what I'll be doing with those. And I'll show you those when they're all done. And again, I'll be back when the pizza is it's almost there. It's actually rising pretty quick. It's already getting pretty fluffy, but I'll be back when I'm ready to put the toppings on. Okay, well, my crust is ready for me to start putting the ingredients on the top. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and show you how I do it, even though this is really all about the crust. And I want to show you something that you might not be able to see, but I forgot to show you earlier, is you take a big fork and poke holes just randomly through there, and that'll help keep the crust from rising up too much and getting big bubbles in the middle of it, like you would do when you're making crackers and stuff like that. Is, you know, poking those holes. You know, when I showed you with the cracker bread, and if you're interested in that recipe, I'll go ahead and put it up here, but poking the holes in it will keep it from getting too puffy. And so now it's all ready to go. I thought about it after it rose some, and then I remembered and poked the holes in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and spread my sauce, and again, you can find the sauce recipe linked up there in the top. And whatever sauce we don't use on the pizza tonight, I actually didn't make a whole great lot of it, but I can use in making spaghetti another night. In fact, there's not a whole bunch here, so I may just put it on rather thick, keeping it on the inside of those edges. And it really is all up to you. In fact, I think I'm going to use it all, because the sauce, that right there is where most of your goodness is. Okay, and then your cheese. This is just regular old store-bought mozzarella cheese. I've tried making my own mozzarella, and it was a major failure, and I haven't wanted, since right now we have to pay a lot of money for the expensive organic Valley milk, because we're not currently getting milk from anyone yet. Hopefully that will happen soon. So I just buy whatever mozzarella cheese I can get. And anyway, I shred it up, put it on there, and you can put more if you like. All right, and then remember the Italian sausage, quote unquote. I'll sprinkle some of that around. You don't have to use it all. It's entirely up to you, because if you have leftover sauce, then you can just take whatever you don't use on your pizza, which I'm going to use all this, and you can add it to your leftover sauce to use for spaghetti. If you have leftovers, that is, of course. Okay, and now I'm going to take the dehydrated foods that I rehydrated, soaked a bit there, and sprinkle those around. So I got the tomatoes, the zucchini, and the mushrooms. I actually could have still put more mushrooms in there, but I still got these goodies. So I got the peppers. And another thing I recommend is if you got kale growing fresh, chop that up real small and sprinkle it on top. That'll just add more goodness to your pizza. And my kale was growing really good all year round, and then all of a sudden we got, you know, come February, we suddenly actually got winter, and now it's not doing so great. It's still alive. It's just not doing great right now, so I'm not going to do that. And then the olives. And then you're going to bake this on the bottom shelf in your oven, on the very bottom, at about 375 to 400 degrees, depending on how hot your oven is. And again, the bottom, because you're wanting to get the bottom of your pizza crust to brown nicely without over baking the top. It's going to be for about 25 minutes. Keep an eye on it. You might need to go a little bit less or a little bit more. 25 minutes is about the average time that you're going to want to bake it. I currently have my oven heated up. And there we go. That looks really good. Lots of color on that. I wouldn't mind a little more red, but hey, there we go. All right, well, my breadsticks and my pizza are ready to go in the oven. I'm going to go ahead and bake those in a few minutes here, and I'm going to post the pictures of them all finished right here, so I get this video all finished up and get this equipment out of my way. And anyway, so there's how you can make your own homemade pizza. So I got several different videos that go with this, so don't forget to check the other ones out. And just be creative with your toppings. Do whatever sounds good to you and make it as healthy as possible. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.